GeoServer is an open source project that you can use yourself, and you can also adapt it, and you can basically deploy it on a server, and it helps you to host your geospatial data and serve it out as OGC protocols. So think of WMS, WMTS, or the newer versions now, OGC Features API or the OGC Maps API. So you can basically think of it as a piece of software that you place on your server in order for you to basically serve out your spatial data. Like if you want to send an email, you're not going to launch like your own mail server, right? So it is impractical in that many people have the willingness to publish some spatial data or the willingness to share some spatial data. But the cost of launching a GeoServer and maintaining it is quite high. And for the same reason, if I want to share some document with you, I'm going to use like a hosting service as a service. I'm not going to create a server of my own, launch so I could totally do it, and it would not, and the software can be pretty good, but it would still not be the flow that I would take. And the problem in this geospatial industry that we have right now is that in order to do business, basically, so to share a bit of data that you can consume, to even collaborate on a project, I'm first going to need to create some of my own IT infrastructure to do it. That IT infrastructure can be pretty good, but it's still like the cost of doing that transaction is pretty high if I really need to do that from scratch. I think that solution needs to fit like a few basic principles. One, it should be an easy as a service solution. If I want to share a piece of information, I shouldn't have to set up anything. I should just be able to log in, create that piece of content and share it with my audience. And the other thing is that it is very important that such a solution is not license-based, because if we want to make transacting in geospatial data easier, it needs to be a solution that is easy to invite people to, that has no threshold to entry. Like if I share some data with you, I shouldn't be concerned whether you have this or that license. So it needs to be a tool without seed licensing. Furthermore, the tool needs to be fully aware and compliant with OGC standards. So the last thing that we need is like another standard to transact in. I think we already littered way too much of the standards over the last 2 decades. Mostly it should be about like making the transaction easier and not like making it easier to transact via those standard protocols, and not really coming up with a new protocol, because that was not the real issue. And lastly, it should be very flexible in the sense that if I create some piece of content, I should not have to choose like via what protocol am I going to expose it. And so I, as a sender, I should just be able to send you my piece of content without needing to set anything up. And you as a receiver should be able to say, okay, now I want to use this content that you send me via this or that way, without me needing to really think about that beforehand. The main reason why we engineered Ellipsis Drive is to basically solve the problem that the cost of doing business in the spatial industry is too high. That is to say, I can create a wonderful model, I can launch a wonderful satellite, I create all kinds of interesting risk information, but then giving that to you and for you to be able to actually use it in your processes is A, cost intensive, and B, like time intensive. And that's why you see geospatial data sometimes locked up in its own silo, because doing business outside of that silo can be very expensive. And that is the central problem that we wanted to solve. And Ellipsis Drive solves that problem by creating a drive for spatial data that can be used by anyone. You could it's fully as a service, you can sign up, and that's all that is needed. It functions as an easy way to collaborate and share the spatial data without any real overhead costs. You can expose a bit of spatial content on it. I can choose to who I'm exposing it. I can choose whether I'm going to expose it to the entire public by just making it a public piece of content or a private piece of content, and pick and choose permissions that I set. And the receiver can basically choose how I'm going to use it. Like I, as a sender, I don't need to care about, well, whether I'm going to expose this in the OGC Maps API or as a WCS, or that I'm going to allow you to stream it in ArcGIS or whatnot. The Ellipsis drive makes sure that whatever content I place in Ellipsis drive can be consumed by any means that the receiver chooses. And yeah, with that, I think one of the major roadblocks that plagues the spatial industry is solved.